Today we will be doing a recap of a South Korean crime thriller film named Sea Fog, directed by Shim Sung-bo that was released on 2014, adapted from the 2007 stage play by Kim Min-jong titled Haumu, based on a true story. The movie begins at sea, where we are introduced to the fisherman crew as they carry out their day-to-day operations on the boat. They dock, and it is clear that they did not catch anything this time. The crew heads out to town. Dong-sik visits his grandmother, while Captain Kong goes to ask for a loan from the man he usually sells his fish to. The captain returns home to find his wife having relations with a man, and besides the man who is frightened to be caught in the act. The captain and his wife have a normal random conversation with no feelings involved and leaves her with money. The scene cuts to Kyung-koo arriving in the docks early in the night, in a scooter with a female friend, and proceeds to board the boat with her. As they enter their sleeping quarters, Chong-wook is in his bed reading a big boy magazine and draws the curtain before he is noticed so he can peep the live action about to commence. Kyung-koo opens the curtain revealing that he'd noticed him and is familiar with his antics, and leads his female friend to the captain's room believing that it is vacant since the captain went home. The captain catches him in the act and reprimands him for bringing a girl on board and gives Kyung-koo money to get him a room at a motel. The next morning the captain heads over to a known associate who's known for shady deals and asks to take on a job he once refused. Unlike always, where the job entailed smuggling merchandise such as fake watches and other goods across the sea. The job that is available and which pays at the moment is smuggling immigrants from one point to the next. The captain reluctantly accepts the job as he and his crew need the money to survive. The associate gives the captain a set of his and hers fake watches and an envelope full of cash underneath the table, literally. We then see the crew busy preparing to set sail as a police officer arrives to do a name check on the crew members, as it is customary before each departure. They depart during the day, and as they leave the shore, Won-ho comes out of hiding and we learn that he has fines that are outstanding. Bossen asks the crew to assemble in the cabin so he can brief them on the new job they have taken. As the crew shares their questions amongst themselves, Chong-wook with a foolish look assumingly blurts out, "There will be chicks among the immigrant, right?" And in that moment the captain arrives to pay them in advance, assuring them there will be more once they have completed this job. Nighttime arrives and hard rain soaks the sea. Captain Kong spots a boat in the distance which has the immigrants. The immigrant passengers then jump on board, and during the commotion a female passenger is afraid to jump, and after some urging she does and unfortunately falls right in the sea, and when it seems she will be ignored, Dong-sik jumps in after her and manages to reach her in time before she is lost at sea. After the rescue, the crew is delighted that Dong-sik was able to make it, and the passengers settle in being provided with something to eat. It seems Dong-sik has taken a liking to the girl he saved and leads her to the engine room as to get her warm. He provides her with ramen. We then learn the girl's name is Hong-mei and is going to Korea to find her older brother who hasn't been home for quite some time. After her meal, Hong-mei thanks Dong-sik for saving her and feels it is not fair to the other passengers if she is warm while they freeze outside. She heads out and a woman starts making conversation, asking if her and Dong-sik had relations in the engine room. After a while, Chong-wook peeped the same woman as she was relieving herself. Right at that moment Kyung-koo makes a move and the woman does not hesitate as she is led to the engine room. Kyung-koo gets some and Chong-wook peeps the whole show, asking to be next when Kyung-koo notices him. Bossen arrives to see Kyung-koo having relations while Chong-wook is watching and is furious at the sight he sees. He pulls Kyung-koo of the woman and kicks him while shouting, "I told you not to do it on the boat, it's bad luck." He then dragged the woman out the engine room back to the other passengers. Morning breaks and a ship is spotted near by, prompting the crew to ask the passengers to climb down the fish hold, where fish are kept after capture. Once the ship has passed, they let out the passengers who are at that moment are crying out about the awful smell, and Hong-mei along with others rushes out to vomit while Dong-sik assists her back to the engine room. Another passenger protests with the support of other passengers that they be kept elsewhere for the rest of the trip because the fish hold is no place for humans, especially since they paid, and demand their money back. This act infuriates Captain Kong, who grabs a broom and starts to discipline the passenger until Dong-sik lays on top of the passenger as to provide cover for him after he was urged by Hong-mei to help out the passenger. Captain Kong angrily orders his crew to throw the passenger overboard and then delivers a few lines to the rest of the passengers and says, "On this boat, I'm the president, the judge, and your father." The whole act leaves the passengers shook and obedient. The overboard passenger is rescued and with the others led back to the fish hold, promising them the hatch will remain open for some air to come in. After that incident, Hong-mei is in the engine room, bored and can't keep to herself. She pulls a lever which releases steam from one of the pipes and sits down as if she was well behaved. Dong-sik brings her blankets and a pillow. Hong-mei and Dong-sik's relationship strengthens after this scene as they later play tag with their lips. Captain Kong is wakened from his midday snooze by a radio call from the Taechong patrol ship doing its rounds. Captain Kong asks, "Where exactly?" and is informed he has made it all the way to international waters. The patrol crew heads over to board the Junjin on a small boat, and at the same time the crew proceeds to close the hatch of the fish hold and cover it up with fishing nets, while Captain Kong pulls out some cash from his envelope and proceeds to stash it in his jacket as compensation. Upon arrival, Chief Kim the inspector asks the engine of the boat to be turned off and boards alone, stating to his two companions that he knows these guys, and dismisses them. Chief Kim makes friendly fun of the crew, showing that he really knows the crew and was able to point out that Dong-sik is the new kid on the crew. He starts looking around, suspensefully getting closer to the hatch where one crew member is sitting casually as if there is nothing hidden in it. Chief Kim chases him out of the way of the hatch as he clears the nets from it and sits on it himself. Captain Kong tries to persuade him to go upstairs for a drink as to lure him away, and Chief Kim brushes him off, not moving a muscle. Captain Kong tells Dong-sik to fetch the leftover sashimi. At this point the crew is standing close together looking suspicious with fear in their eyes until Captain Kong orders them to cast the nets. Captain Kong proceeds to sit down and places the bribe money under a bowl while making small talk with Chief Kim. A sound from underneath the boat startles Chief Kim and he inquires the captain about it, and Captain Kong lies and claims Won-ho must be fixing something and that the boat's radiator has been faulty. Chief Kim asks for the time, and we see that Captain Kong is wearing the fake watch he was given by the known associate. Chief Kim then reveals that he knows about the smuggling of the watches, as he too is wearing the same watch and wants to be cut in the deal. The captain acts as if he doesn't have an idea of what he is talking about, making Chief Kim angry and threatening to open the hatch to prove his point. Captain Kong holds his own by feigning ignorance and lashes out in anger, threatening the Chief Kim with a stick while grabbing him forcefully down from the hatch. In the intense moment, Chief Kim breaks the silence with laughter and takes the whole act as a joke and takes his compensation under the bowel and proceeds to leave the Junjin. As he departs in the small patrol boat, he shouts that the sea fog is creeping in. Once Captain Kang's boat has gained distance from the Taechong patrol ship, the crew heads over to the fish hold and Dong-sik opens the hatch to the silence from underneath, where the crew assumes that the passengers might have fallen asleep. Dong-sik, Won-ho and Chong-wook head down as to try shake the passengers awake, as they feared their shouts weren't loud enough to wake them up. A cold chill fills the fish hold as none of the passengers show any signs of life. Won-ho starts to smell gas and urges his two crew mates to hurry out the fish hold. He then informs the others that he smelled freon gas and that the freezer might have exploded. The whole crew is devastated about the loss, and Captain Kong sits down in a daze. When nighttime has arrived and the fog has engulfed the ship, Captain Kong snaps out of it and orders his crew to bring bodies on deck, and they start removing the belongings like identification documents and burning them. The captain arrives and starts slashing the bodies to draw blood, planning to feed them to the sharks. Hong-mei happens to witness this ordeal and sneaks back in the engine room to stay hidden. After removing any trace of the passengers, Won-ho starts hearing voices and speaking to himself, revealing the psychological toll this ordeal has left on him. Chong-wook had realized that there was a passenger missing and starts looking for her in the engine room as she stays hidden. Dong-sik lures him away from the engine room, making an excuse that Ba-sen wants them in a meeting. We then see how each crew member is struggling with the aftermath of what has happened, and their meeting ends up with Ba-sen and Kyung-koo having a disagreement. The next scene cuts to Dong-sik carrying a pot to the engine room, where he sees the devastated Won-ho pacing and talking to himself. He bumps his head on the stairway and runs back up on the deck. Dong-sik calls out Hong-mar, who is hiding from him as well, thinking she is next on their kill list. He tries to explain what happened while Hong-mei shows she is afraid. They are then startled by Won-ho and Captain Kong entering the engine room. This is where we see how the guilt of their actions has consumed Won-ho, as he keeps apologizing and mumbling they have to set this right and let the world know what they have done. Captain Kong decides to silence him and wipe all the evidence and throw him overboard, not knowing that Dong-sik and Hong-mei have witnessed the whole thing. This experience leaves Dong-sik and Hong-mei to bond over the tragedy, and my guy gets some. Dong-sik promises Hong-mei to get her home even if he has to put his life on the line for it. The crew start looking for Won-ho, not knowing his fate, and upon him not showing they assume he fell overboard. Chong-wook goes to the engine room followed by Dong-sik and bravely claims Won-ho's spot as the engineer in the engine room. In that time Kyung-koo comes in and takes Won-ho's stash from his normal hiding spot, leaving them in awe. Chong-wook follows a scent he just picked up and found Hong-mei and claims her for himself. Dong-sik tries to reason with Chong-wook and comes up with a story to not alert the others, as Kyung-koo might want her for himself if they find out. Chong-wook cannot contain himself and wants to have her at that moment, no longer wanting to wait. This puts Dong-sik in an awkward position as he now has to fight to protect Hong-mei from being abused. Upon both their struggle, Hong-mei calls out Dong-sik's name, which infuriates Chong-wook to find out he is too late, as Dong-sik and Hong-mei might have had relations. They struggle until the captain and the crew hear the commotion and come over. This is when Dong-sik pleads for the safety of Hong-mei, as he plans to marry her when they reach the shore. Captain Kong gives the task of getting rid of Hong-mei to Ba-sen, who happily drags he onto the deck, while Kyung-koo and Chong-wook are holding Dong-sik back. Chong-wook gets excited and rushes after Ba-sen, planning to have his turn before anything can happen to Hong-mei, as he fears he is the only one who hasn't had a turn throughout the trip. Having been held by one less member, Dong-sik breaks free and rushes out to save Hong-mei and pulls Ba-sen, who was holding someone, down back and pin him against a wall, leaving Ba-sen shocked. We then see that he was impaled behind his neck and that the person he had pinned down was Chong-wook and Hong-mei had fled. Dong-sik rushed to the control room and sent a distress call to the Coast Guard, sharing their coordinates before being dragged and thrown in the fish hold, where he finds Hong-mei hiding unbeknownst to the other crew members. They share hug upon being united until Chong-wook peeps in looking for Hong-mei, as he couldn't find her on the rest of the boat. Dong-sik breaks a fish crate on Chong-wook's back blast soon as he jumps in the fish hold. Kyung-koo enters the fish hold as the two struggle, but Hong-mei spots him first and attacks him with a shovel, which does little to no damage to Kyung-koo, who quickly collects himself, grabs the shovel from Hong-mei and pin her down. Kyung-koo is brutally stabbed, and it is revealed to be Chong-wook, who is angry that he hasn't had a turn to do it. He removes his sweater, planning to take his chance to do it, and Dong-sik comes to Hong-mei's rescue. Dong-sik carries Hong-mei away while Chong-wook is left in the fish hold, as Dong-sik removes the ladder, leaving him with no way out. Dong-sik takes Hong-mei to the engine room while he prepares for the final battle, cutting off the engine belts and breaking all the light source in the engine room. Captain Kong heads down the engine room and is ambushed by Dong-sik. Captain Kong, being seasoned, overpowers Dong-sik, who in haste holsters a knife in Captain Kang's back. The ship is wrecked by a larger vessel which floods the boat's engine room and fish hold. Dong-sik uses this moment to launch an all-in assault on the captain and head above deck with Hong-mei. The sinking boat leaves Captain Kong distraught, as this was his whole life. He scrambles to try save it, but his efforts are futile. The last battle happens outside as Captain Kong urges Dong-sik to leave the girl and save the boat. Dong-sik and Hong-mei leap overboard as to save themselves and leave Captain Kong, who is dragged underwater as he persists on saving his boat. Dong-sik and Hong-mei are washed on shore. Hong-mei regains her consciousness and Dong-sik remains unresponsive throughout the cries of Hong-mei. He later wakes up to see his arm bandaged and footprints on the sand, leaving him to believe that Hong-mei has left to seek his brother. 6 years later we see Dong-sik working in a construction site. After his shift he goes to a restaurant and orders ramen with rice cake. A woman in the restaurant who is with 2 kids orders sliced hot pepper for her ramen, and we see Dong-sik and the little girl are looking at each other like there is a connection. Let me fill you in on what I believe this meant. When Dong-sik brought ramen over to Hong-mei in the boat, he later described how a perfect fisherman ramen was like, and one of the ingredients was sliced hot pepper. Now when the woman asked for the same, we might be left to believe that the woman is Hong-mei and that the little girl is his daughter from the moment they had in the boat. Thank you for watching this far, and be sure to check out the movie, Sea Fog.